Follow us on Twitter at LA News Guy. That's twitter.com/LA News Guy. Sunday Morning Newsmakers with Larry Marino. AM 870, The Answer.
Fox News contributor and the individual who was an opponent of banning racial preferences in 1996, Leo Terrell, is joining us. He has since changed his mind, now opposes Prop 16, and he joins us to talk with us. How are you, Leo Terrell? We see you on Fox News all the time, especially with that hat on, that red hat.
Well, Larry, that 2.0 hat reflects a change in my position. I'm very glad to be on the program today, glad to talk about Prop 16, and I'm glad to be supporting President Trump, separate and apart from my opposition to Prop 16.
All right, so what is Proposition 16? And I think you have to start by explaining what happened several years ago when another initiative was passed, right? Absolutely,
and we're talking, I believe, in 1997 with the author Ward Connolly, who led a proposition on the ballot, was Prop 209, and that was designed to eliminate racial preferences in the sense of government contracts awarded in the areas of employment and education. And in 1997, that proposition passed by, I think, 54 to 55 of the Californian voters. I was on the losing end of that proposition because I was opposed to that elimination. And for some reason, 20 some odd years later, they have tried to reinstitute racial preferences, i.e. affirmative action, with Proposition 16. And without going too long, a lot has changed in this country and in this state for the betterment of all people. And I came out in opposition to this proposition in an attempt to reinstate affirmative action, racial quotas, and racial preferences.
You know, Leo, we see a lot of legislation in California right now passed by the legislature and some of it signed by the governor that seems to be going down this path. There's legislation that's been done on exploring reparations and other things, quotas and things like that. What's going on? What is the mindset that our government wants to go back to a day when we have set-asides and people get jobs not because of their ability, but because of the color of their skin?
You know, first of all, the state is too blue. It's blue, blue, blue. But the problem is there's a mindset among the lawmakers that we're living in 1950. This is 2020. Discrimination, and I want to be clear about this. Systemic discrimination does not exist. That is a throw-in term by the left to make people believe that racism is throughout the entire government and everyone's a racist. That is far from the truth. But the point is that people profit from race pandering. And I think the state lawmakers, predominantly Democrats, play the race card so much that they felt they could get this Proposition 16 along with reparations and along with requiring corporations to have minority set aside. It has just gone to the deep end, and I can't explain it other than the fact that this state needs a two-party system. Unfortunately, it's one-party system right now.
All right, Leo, walk us through what 16 might do if passed, how it would be a really bad thing.
Well, first of all, the intended purpose is to give racial preference to certain racial protected class over others. And therefore, merit and qualifications are thrown out the window. But there's a hidden agenda of what they might use where individual companies and organizations might use what they call fronts, props, individual minorities out in front pretending to be the owners of a business in an attempt to get a government contract, but in reality is run by or organized by a different set of people. So there's a sham part of this, which I call profiteering, and then the unequal treatment of individuals in employment and education, which is very, very important, giving racial preferences of one class over another, even though that individual is not as qualified as the one who is being denied.
But they truly believe that there needs to be a step up, a thumb on the scale to help some over others still?
No, I don't believe so. That's why I think the pretext, the hidden motive is this profiteering. Again, this term called fronts, where minorities are placed in the position of being in charge of let's say, receiving a government contract, but there's other individuals basically pulling the strings, and they'll use the race card in order to get the government contract. That's the profiteering. That's the hidden agenda of many people who are behind this Proposition 16, which is really very, very bad. Because again, I want to say this as a civil rights attorney. I mean, I fight against discrimination. I've fought against discrimination for 30 years. I would be the first one to call discrimination if I see it. Yeah. But this is not 1960. Yeah, it's 2020.
And they're trying to take 2020 back to 1960 and sell that narrative. How do you think it's being perceived out there? Have you heard any early polling numbers on how it's doing? Do people get it? Do they understand that these set-asides, that this quota system was a bad thing then and it shouldn't be now? Do they get it? Or are they going to just, Dems are going to vote one way, Republicans the other, and it's going to pass?
No, I think the public gets the message. I think they see behind the actual proposition. I think you're going to find a lot of Democrats who are going to say, no, we don't need this. The polling that I have seen indicates to me that Prop 16 will go down to defeat because people get it. And again, this was lawmakers who knew they couldn't get it passed unless through a proposition. They've been trying to sell it as a need proposition. We need it. The public rejects that argument because this country is in a better state of mind than it was 1997 and, of course, 20, 30, 40 years ago.
All right, so I get it. No on 16. Briefly, you mentioned some of the other legislation that has pushed through this last session, and you talked about it. There is a bill in there that is going to study reparations. A big mistake to do that? What do you think?
A tremendous mistake, because the basis is that there's a mindset that because of our historical wrongs 200 years ago, that somehow there should be some form of government monetary compensation. I don't see what they call in the legal term the nexus, the causation. I use myself as an example. I have been able to go to public schools. I was able to go to a private university at Pepperdine, and I received my law degree from one of the prestigious universities, UCLA. So I don't need that compensation, and I think this is, again, race pandering, and I think it's because the Democrats are worried about losing their, what I call their black vote base, and they're trying to keep them in check.
It used to be the argument was something like this. There are not enough doctors of color, they would say. And, if we have to lessen the requirements a bit to get more doctors of color up into the profession, that will be a good thing. The other side would say, well, wait a second. If you lessen the educational standards, then you have two people. One of them has the skill set. The other has gotten a set aside. I don't want to go to the doctor who doesn't know his stuff. What do you think when it comes on?
Well, you're absolutely right, Larry. That's insulting to the mindset of African Americans. That means there's some type of inferiority complex. Again, I have to use myself as an example. I went to UCLA Law School. I took the California State Bar, one of the toughest bar exams in the country. And guess what? I'm black, and I passed it on the first try. So I find that insulting, and it gives a mindset that people of color, certain people of color, need an additional help because they're somehow inferior. I reject that argument. Our country is supposed to be colorblind. We should start practicing that immediately.
And how would you feel if the bar test that you took, you check what box it is and you get a different scoring sample based on that? Would that be offensive?
I think it would be tremendously offensive, and I think that would be a sense of public embarrassment. And I think that to get a job simply because of your skin color, that's what we're talking about, color. We're not talking about organs, brain, or anything else. Color. I think it's insulting, and I think those who believe that is a necessity, or again, profiting, and they're using it for a different alternative. And I can assure you, it is to solidify the black Democratic vote and to keep it there away from the Republicans.
Yeah. Now, what about those who call everybody who opposes things like this, well, you're racist then? The word racist has been tossed around a lot this election season, hasn't it?
Oh, Larry, it's been thrown out every single day. day and night. And the argument is, you're not hearing any arguments as to why you're opposed to it. You're being called names. You're being called someone who is a racist in the manner that you don't like black people. Well, it's not just that. It's blacks who disagree with Prop 16. They're called names. Unfortunately, names like Uncle Tom and House Negro, just horrible names. But you know what? If you know the facts, you can withstand the name calling. And I'll tell you right now, I have more credibility on the left than any one of those proponents of Prop 16. And I'm telling you, it's not necessary, it's wrong, and it should be rejected by the California.
Leo Terrell is a longtime civil rights attorney. He is on the side of no on Proposition 16 when you go to vote, and give us the 1-minute reason why.
Because it's not necessary. It violates the Constitution of equal protection of all people. It is designed to profit individuals that are using race as a pretext. No one in this country should be elevated for a job or college interest simply based on color. It should be based on merit and skill.
Leo Terrell, thank you for being on the program. Of course, we see you on Fox News Channel many times on Hannity there with the hat. And what do those letters say on there? 2.0? What is it?
Yes, Leo 2.0, because Leo 1.0, Larry, would have been supporting Prop 16. Leo 2.0 woke up this year, thank goodness, saw the light, and decided, among other things, to vote no on Prop 16 and to switch parties and vote Republican.
Very passionate about what you believe in. Leo Terrell, longtime civil rights attorney. Thanks so much for being with us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. My pleasure.
AM 870, The Answer.